Someone by the name, I'm probably going to butcher this, of Bellular News says Activision's budget's leaked. It's as bad as we expected. And I think this is going under the radar from like this should be a way bigger news story than it actually is, right? Like these games like Concord that have a $400 million budget, Call of Duty's doubled it yearly. Like it's nobody like realizing this, and like it's much bigger of a deal than it's getting credit for. So I'm curious what he has to say about this. I think we've watched a couple of his videos before, but yeah, it was Black Ops 3 costs. What was it? 400, 500? I'm sure he'll go over it.
One of the trends that has been the most damaging to gaming. That's because games at the very top end are beginning to get near billion-dollar budgets, and the industry-wide impact of this is honestly disastrous. So, new data reported by GameFile puts Black Ops Cold War at 700...
That's Cold War, right? Keep that in mind. That's Cold War. Also, this $700 million budget does not include marketing, but it includes post-launch support, right? So that's for the launch of the game, building the game, and post-launch support, but not marketing. Now, we know that the marketing for Black Ops 6 was almost, I believe, costing as much as the development of the game. I believe I heard reports of that. So we can assume Cold War was like 4 years ago, inflation, increased prices. Black Ops 6 was $1 billion game. There's no way it wasn't.
$100 million, and of course, since its release in 2020, costs only seem to have increased.
Wasn't this when they started to move to IW engine? No, they used their own engine during Cold War, but Warzone was on the IW engine. I believe Black Ops 6 is the first Treyarch game on this. It's not an IW engine. They wanted to make it very clear it's not an IW engine. It's the Call of Duty engine. So.
But that 700 million is just the start. That's actually because an unnamed developer told the UK's Competition and Markets Authority that some companies were facing combined costs, so including marketing and such, upward of $1 billion.
That's what I just said.
So if you've ever wondered why your games have turned into shops, why a $70 game suddenly seems like it has to make so much more than $70, it's this kind of thing. If you've wondered about COD's endless...
So let's say it's $1 billion game. You guys know I do this a lot. Say, let's say, I think like a pretty like reasonable guess is, let's say $1.2 billion divided by 70. You need to sell, 17 million copies. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's actually a pretty low number for Call of Duty. Like they're normally around like 30 million, I think. Now, Game Pass is worked in there, but that's just to recoup their costs, right? So you got to assume they want to double that. They want to at least double their money on their investment, and then everything after that. So if they sell 34 million copies and then they sell microtransaction, that's when they're making up their money. So that's like just a quick look at the numbers behind that, right?
This torrent of questionable quality cosmetics.
Ubisoft Skull and Bones took around 650 to 850 million over 10. Is that confirmed?
Well, there's that. Or perhaps why we're seeing multiple studios have shut down over just the last few months. This stuff matters, and that's because of contrast. We will see today, yes, the excesses of the industry, but also a AAA, single-player, narrative game studio that is trying to do things different with Remedy. But of course, before that, well, we got to deal with this report, because for Activision, that money is well spent. For their opponents, it perhaps isn't. So here's the deal. Stephen Totillo, who runs GameFile, was pouring through legal documents stemming from an ongoing court case, and he came across redacted data that has not been reported on before.
I think I talked about this.
What he found, right, was a declaration from Patrick Kelly, who is the head of creative for Call of Duty, and
I've just met Pat Kelly. I've met this man.
These numbers, they're kind of wild. Black Ops.
So Pat Kelly likes to brag. He really likes to brag about the things that he makes. That's probably why these numbers came out.
3 cost 450 million and sold 45 million copies. Modern Warfare cost 640 million and sold 41 million copies. And Black Ops Cold War cost 700 million and
sold 30. I made a whole video on this. If you want to see like the whole video I made on this, it's on the main channel. It's like the secret Activision doesn't want you to know, or I named it something along those lines. But yeah, they made almost as much money, or at least very similar amounts of money off of Cold War as they did off of Modern Warfare, yet it sold 11 million copies less.
Sold 30 million copies, which is less, but still, that's a lot of copies sold. And even though the troubled development of Cold War likely factors into its cost, we're still seeing cost rises of like 50 million a year. But make no mistake, this is a money printer.
Yep.
But it's doing something industry-wide that is impacting all of us. Here is a quote from the leadership of Insomniac Games. This was them speaking about Spider-Man 2, and it's a brutal quote. Is 3x the investment evident to anyone who plays the game?
Ooh.
I've set that to you. I've not actually got into Spider-Man.
So what that's asking is, okay, so let's say they spend 200 million on Spider-Man. If you triple that and spend 600 million, to the average player, does the game seem 3 times better?
Spider-Man 2, yet I still haven't finished 1. But 2 cost $300 million. 1 cost $100 million. That's got quite the impact on profitability. He does make a good point. Spider-Man 2, per the leaks, had to hit over 7 million sales just to break even. But the thing is, this is actually not a problem for Activision. Modern Warfare 2 crossed $1 billion of sales in 10 days, which is 5 days faster.
Exactly.
Than Black Ops 2's 15-day record, and that's, of course, all without the extremely aggressive microtransaction money and the Black Cell Battle Pass and all that stuff that goes on pretty shortly after the launch. So, for Call of Duty, ROI on this insane amount of money is guaranteed, return on investment. That's why they've got 3,000 odd people on Call of Duty as of 2022. And
is that the number? Do we have that number? 3,000? I would have. Yeah, actually makes a lot of sense.
Skimping clearly does not work either, and we kind of have data to show that. Modern Warfare 3 was famously cobbled together a shit show that was not well received. Black Ops was not. It had 4 years of development, and that does appear to have shown, well, subjectively in the game, because it's great, but also in the sales. PlayStation and Steam sales were up 60% over Modern Warfare 3. That is well worth the price of an extra year of development. And if you're pretty damn sure that you're going to get, say, Red Dead Redemption 2 levels of sales, you'll feel pretty okay spending a Red Dead Redemption 2.
They're selling that much every year. Imagine if Rockstar released a Red Dead Redemption 2 every year. Like, people don't realize how big these numbers
level of
are.
Money. But those games, COD especially, are unique. In a way, they're the worst of industry access, but they're working. Here's the problem, though. Their results are what every exec wants, and that is what has done so much damage. The big players are fighting for 2 things, currency and time, and Call of Duty comes off pretty damn well in that fight. It's one of the games that occupies the 75% of gaming concurrency that is taken up by the 5 most played games. There's an insane amount of consolidation at the top end.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, if you're a big AAA, well, what do you need to do? What do you need to compete with to get that type of audience? Call of Duty. I mean, even take an old but very direct example. EA Games almost ran Battlefield into the ground the first time, and they quite literally destroyed.
They've done that several times, actually.
Medal of Honor as a franchise, basically. All in a
Titanfall,
vain
Medal of
attempt
Honor.
to fight Call of Duty on its own terms with yearly releases. It didn't work, and writ large, just about nobody is succeeding here. We have seen countless dead live service titles, more and more aggressive business models that just aggravate us, and even the old-fashioned way isn't always working. Take Square Enix, they like to make big, graphically wowing games, but Final Fantasy, outside of 14, has been a continual disappointment. The budget sides of FF7 Rebirth and FF16 meant that profits failed to meet the company's expectations. And that again is where I call up the Insomniac quote. Is 3 times the investment evident to anyone who plays the game? I'd argue that in most cases, it ain't. That's what Sean Layden lamented.
So essentially, okay, so exactly what he is saying in that video is is Spider-Man 2 3 times better than Spider-Man 1? And I think it's a pretty obvious answer. No, it's better. It's longer, I think. And like there's more to it, more area. But it's not 3 times better.
He was talking about the AA game space basically collapsing and the complete unsustainability of AAA in a world where the companies are gearing up to fight Call of Duty, but without the brand recognition, the consumer yearly purchase patterns, and the sheer budget. Back when EA pushed for yearly Call of Duty competition, they were also doing fun things like live servicifying their entire lineup, all trying to chase the same types of dynamics. We know, as an example, that Dragon Age 4 was initially a live service title. To me, and you in first principles, that's a completely stupid idea because it's not what Dragon Age is. But to the midwit investors and executive types, well, they're looking at the business models that they are seeing convert and drive stocks up. Activision can afford to spend close to $1 billion to sell you a $70 game when they've got a yearly track record of selling upward of 40 million copies. Just about no one else.
I'm pulling out the calculator again. I don't know why I do this so much, and you guys probably find it boring, but I'm pulling out the calculator again. So let's say they have a bad year, sell 20 million copies. $1.4 billion. That's a bad year. I bet you Modern Warfare 3 sold more than 20 million copies. That's a bad year. Plus microtransactions. Holy fucking shit. Anyway, back to the video.
But you can see it from the C-suite. Why would you have another one-and-done Batman Arkham game when you can play in the big leagues with an ongoing live service title? I mean, imagine you are on a board. What's a better sell? Oh, we're going to continue as normal with another one, but better than the last one. Or,
but this is what's crazy, and this is the problem with Call of Duty. This is it. Like, this is the problem, right? Is they're having their cake and eating it too. They're selling 400 million copies a year, and then they're doing the live service model. There needs to be a medium between the two. There needs to be this happy medium between selling the game every year and what live service options they're putting forward. And the problem is with them refreshing every single year, it deters from you actually. I don't know. There needs to be something that changes. And I don't even like my thoughts are not fully put together on this one, but there's something there that's missing.
We have a massive plan for outsized growth that capitalizes on the business model of the future that gamers want, as shown by spend and playtime. One of those things is going to look more investable than the other, but I didn't do this video just to be a doomer. There is good news, and it's news wrapped up in the story of how Remedy want to not die and basically be free. So here's the deal. Remedy are trying to work out their future, and as a part of that, they made a 5-year promise to their investors, and in that, they committed to releasing 2 AAA self-published games designed to be sustainable and profitable. Of course, you then think, how? How are you going to do this in a world where AAA narrative studios are shutting down and it's all doom and gloom? Do you have a magic solution or a massive pile of Alan Wake 2 money? Well, the answer is no to the Alan Wake 2 money. That game has...
I remember when Alan Wake Remedy released a statement saying, hey, we finally made money off of Alan Wake 2. And it's just like, oh, like they're barely scraping by here.
Still not turned a profit for them. Now,
it has now,
being
I think.
An Epic exclusive in some ways doesn't help, but Alan Wake 2 only exists because Epic funded it. Sam Lake, who is the creative director and also the literal face of Max Payne, he said that Alan Wake 2 would have happened in 2010 if anyone had been willing to fund a single-player narrative game. So yeah, the deal was basically money now at the cost of money later, and when the game does break even, obviously Remedy will be getting a 50% cut of that revenue per their publishing agreement. Now, many of the default reactions here are totally going to be, yeah, well, you should have been in Steam, that's where the PC gamers are. But without Epic, Alan Wake 2, the single-player horror game, would not have existed. That's because games like that don't tend to get made as much anymore. And for the longest time, the reason why was obvious.
So let's just make a direct comparison here, right? Let's make a direct comparison to Netflix, right? Netflix funds, I don't want to say studios, but people to make movies, right? So I am me, and I want to make a Call of Duty movie. I bring my pitch to Netflix, and they say, okay, we'll pay you a certain amount of money, and it'll be on our service. Done. At the end of the day, I make a certain amount of money. But video games, Alan Wake 2, they also have a publishing agreement where the sales after a certain amount make that money too. But they still have the exclusivity on that platform. I'm hoping we get away from that, right? And Xbox is pushing to get away from that with Game Pass, right? Because you put a game on Game Pass, it's always free. It's not like they're just publishing it on their server, which is the traditional way of doing it, right? Like Xbox would pay Bungie to make, okay, that's a bad example because Bungie is not on there anymore, but let's just use it. Bungie to make Halo 3. They pay them money up front. It launches on Xbox. Once they recuperate that money that they spent on it, then each studio, the studio and Xbox, will make a portion of that thing. It's different models, but it seems like we're getting away from that, where Xbox is wanting to fund studios, or buy them in some cases, to put their games on Game Pass and then have this subscription model money. And I don't know what's better. Like, I'm not an accountant, but I don't know, it's interesting.
People were looking at other business models, other types of games. I mean, even going back to his day, there was another publisher who was funding single-player narrative horror games. They're called Electronic Arts, and we all know how that turned out with Dead Space 3. All of this is why their new plan matters. Here's their actual plan with real budgets. For context, Alan Wake 2 cost €53.5 million to develop. There was additional
53 million euro. Okay.
of course, in marketing and such. So here's the deal. Their next two self-published games, which are FBC Firebreak, which is a spin-off of Control, and Control 2, are budgeted for €30 million.
30 million euros and 50 million euros. Is there a trailer out for FBC Firebreak? There is.
Recently, a viewer told me to
Okay,
check
why
out
are you just playing random videos, YouTube? I'm trying to watch a trailer here.
This place was always dangerous and weird. Policy and procedure used to keep us in control.
Well, that's a callback to
Now,
Control.
We need
Oh, they're doing a
new
co-op game.
approach.
This is not what I expected. Okay. I don't know if that music's copyrighted, so I'm going to leave it out, but you can kind of see what the game looks like. Not what I expected whatsoever. I thought it was going to be much more narrative driven, not so much gameplay driven, but interested. See, this is what I was talking about earlier today, how these companies have numbers, how they know exactly how many copies they need to sell to recuperate their investment. So mid-price, so it's not a AAA game. Okay, that makes sense. 3 million copies lifetime, and then another 3. Okay.
with a $40 asking price and €50 million with a full AAA asking price, with
PvE shooter. Okay.
sales estimates being between
This is
3
making
and
sense to
4
me now.
million. And that's basically what they're wanting to do to break even and then in the long run be profitable, because those games will be assets that'll just keep on selling for years and years and years. Because unlike the countless dead live service games that no one will ever...
So if you go to Shoppers Drug Mart right now, I don't know if you have that in the States. If you go to a drug store, Walgreens, is that the ones that, do they sell video games there? Because Shoppers Drug Mart's the one that we have here. Anyway, and you go and you look to buy, let's call it Black Ops 3 or Black Ops 4 was the one I think I saw there last. The game is still $69.99. Black Ops 4 does not have a campaign. So even though it's a dead live service game, technically, they're still making money off of it.
touch, you can like buy Alan Wake and play
Yeah,
it.
I'm talking about games on disc. Yeah, that's what I'm talking
The
about.
same goes for Max Payne, and you can buy the Alan Wake remaster, because it turns out if you make something that's got real value, it'll have real value, and you can sell it for a long time. And it's not
Look
that
at
they're
Skyrim.
making these games with tiny teams. Remedy are 365 spread across 2 studios plus 250 external devs. Their main base is in Finland, which is higher than the average European cost of living. They have another base in Stockholm, I
Next time I go there, I'll take a picture of it.
believe, which is, I also believe, a very expensive city. And graphically, it's not like they're making little, indie PSX games in the cheap. No! These games are stunning, but you know what
At
they're
Walmart,
not?
those games are still
they're
full
not
price, thank
hundreds
you.
of millions of dollars, and it's why the utter AAA graveyard is actually a good thing. Remedy are able to do this because of design. Control and Alan Wake 2 are visually stunning games, but in one of them, to be reductive, you're traipsing around a forest, and in the other one, you're traipsing around a building. It's not really billion-dollar set pieces everywhere, but not
True.
only do they not need to be that, it wouldn't serve them being that. Alan Wake blows me away with its art direction, its craft. The rest is how that's achieved. When Control makes a pleasing noise and blasts me with some really cool-looking
Guys, I haven't played Control yet. I'm going to be honest with you.
triangles, that's artistry, not a dump truck of money. Remedy make cost-controlled AAA games that leverage their artistic mastery to achieve player experiences that other firms spend far more money and years striving for, and of course, perhaps even self-sabotage with live service ambitions. It will never make Remedy billions of dollars. They have not promised their investors billions of dollars, and shockingly enough, their investors do seem to be happy. Now, this is not me saying that Remedy is a charity. No, it's not a charity.
That is kind of shocking, actually, that their investors are happy with that.
It is a profit-seeking business, but it also appears to be a mission-driven business.
I have not watched Jack Fragg's video yet, but it's literally on my list. It's on this screen over here.
Its mission is to make the types of games that they want to make, but far more importantly, it also understands something. Greed would rob them of the success they do have. A giant live service play that leaves them leveraged to their tits with insane risk would probably fail, and almost certainly would kill the company. Then they'd have nothing. Rather shockingly, all of this is in spite of Remedy being a publicly traded company and one having a stock chart that looks like this. Our lesson here is simple, it's awesome, and now that we have more data of the top end of the industry, man, I love it. The whole line go up mantra has failed developers, failed creativity, failed gamers. Sam Lake said it, right? You weren't gonna get an Alan Wake 2 funded with the way that things were, and we've all seen it in games. There's near endless accounts everywhere, including, say, the ones within Blizzard, where Blizzard couldn't even
On PC, you have other storefronts to check. Yeah, I don't even have a disk drive in my PC. So yeah, it's definitely you have other storefronts. But you got to remember, most of the people who play Call of Duty are not on PC. Still to
commit
this
to
day.
making an RTS. You know, real-time strategy. The thing that Blizzard literally foundationed its business off. And what's best is this is tangibly useful for you and me. You see, Sony can afford to do what it does to, well, just about spend what it spends because of its dominant console position and its first-party business model. So if you just yanked things from Sony, you'd be learning lessons like wrong. They don't apply to you. Call of Duty and its big live service model, all of that spend, that's okay because their return on investment is rather proven. But it's that Call of Duty and live service type revenue that is motivating investors. It's the business model that they want. A combination of that and the first party factor is why Sony thought, oh, sick, we'll do a Concorde.
Yeah, this is 100% correct.
It's going to be great. When obviously it was doomed to fail. And here's where
Call of Duty can do it because they have a proven track record of it. And yeah, they're becoming increasingly shady, and hopefully their numbers, they see what people actually want and do that, but only time will tell. And so far it's not telling very well.
super tangible for me and you. This is not one-to-one, but it makes the point, right? How many people lose their money chasing the next big trend or the next big viral stock? You know, they see, oh, Tesla went up, Palantir went up, Nvidia went up, and then they think they can time the market, they end up losing, and they lose a hell of a lot of money. That is our analog for a lot of the mistakes.
Nobody buys discs on PC anyway. I wasn't
versus
saying
what
that.
Remedy seem to be doing, which is boring. It's The equivalent of putting a little bit of money away each month into an index fund. It ain't sexy, it's not going to lead you to explosive growth, but it's sustainable. It works. And perhaps, if that is sustainable and works, you can get on with the thing that matters, which is the craft and making something. Because in a world of delusion where companies just thought, oh, we can do a Call of Duty, we can do a Destiny, whatever it is, that's just survivorship bias, leading fools to lose a lot of money. And yeah, personal finance and big business are different, but I think the point is clear. Remedy should be celebrated for this sort of model. Let's hope that more are to follow. And I have a hell of a story to follow this video with. It is about Ubisoft. Don't worry, you don't need to be an Assassin's Creed fan, because really, it's a corporate family drama.
Oh yeah, okay, so that's about the them selling to Tencent. So takeaway there, Call of Duty is going to continue to do this, and there's nothing we can do about it. That is essentially it. The only thing you can do is speak with your wallet if you're not enjoying a Call of Duty game, but the hype train's going to get back. It's going to come, and 30 million people are going to buy the next game, and just like that, they've recuperated their cost in every single microtransaction bought, which, God, I bet you every single season, they are probably selling almost enough battle passes to make up their costs as well. Like, I bet you they're selling nearly $1 billion in battle passes every season. Does that sound crazy? Am I insane? Am I insane?